All right, hi everyone. Welcome to our first student panel on course selection, charting an innovative path. We are all going to talk about some of the courses that we've found particularly innovative and interesting, and just provide some recommendations. This is a really casual discussion, so feel free to ask questions, participate. We can have an open discussion at the end. It probably won't take a whole hour, so really feel free to jump in there whenever you want to. One thing that I'm going to put on everyone's radar is we are going to send out an email for next year's exec board applications. And begin the process of nominating and electing our new leadership. More instructions on how that's going to look will come, but essentially we plan on sending an email out tonight with an application, and all of the instructions will be laid out in the email and on the application, and the timeline as well. So keep a lookout for that. And we really encourage you, as always, to get more involved with WIN if you want to. And yeah, just to put that on everyone's radar. So moving into our discussion for today, this is charting an innovative path course selection. And yeah, like I said, we're going to just speak about some classes that we've found stood out in our Dartmouth experience. So I'm going to start. My first recommendation is CS22, which is digital modeling. It is offered almost every term. It is offered in the spring. I will be TAing in the spring, so you can be one of my students. And it is taught by a couple of different professors. I took it with Professor Lori Loeb, and it's also taught by Professor Mahoney, and occasionally I think a visiting professor as well. In the spring is going to be taught by Professor Loeb as well. And I took this class originally because I'm a digital arts minor, and I love like the intersection between like design, art, and like computer science. And this was my first class in the digital arts minor. And I'd also worked in the Dolly Lab freshman year as a women in science intern. So I already sort of had a relationship with Lori, and wanted to take one of her classes. So that's why I signed up. And it is the class that I talk about when anyone asks me about classes at Dartmouth. So the picture on the right is something I modeled. So everything you see in there is something that was made out of a cube or sphere or cylinder on this program called Maya. And you hand make every single thing. You texture them, you design it, you light the scene, you render it, you do the whole 9 yards. And this was inspired from a cafe back at home in New York. It's inside a church, so it has some beautiful arches and really high ceilings, and was just really aesthetically pleasing. So this is a room that I modeled. And yeah, it's basically kind of is an introduction to this intersection between art, design, and computer science. It's a class that forces you to get really good at this software called Maya, which is basically what Pixar and Disney and what all of these companies use to create animations. And yeah, you're kind of thrown in there, given a lot of help and support along the way, but you become really immersed in this software and build something. You can build whatever you want. So you get to be really creative and artistic as well, which is really an awesome part of it. And this class can be for anyone. You don't have to be a digital arts minor, no computer science experience necessary, no design experience necessary. There's always a lot of people from a ton of different backgrounds, which is really cool. So yeah, basically, if you've ever watched an animated movie and thought, how do they make that? I want to try it. This class is for you. Or if you know, see this image and think that's kind of cool, then this class is for you. But it does fill up. So if you're interested, I recommend you add it before ad drop. It's also an art distrib. So that's my first recommendation. And my second recommendation is a philosophy class that I took this past spring. So obviously this was the first term that was online. So my guess is that it's only gotten better in terms of how it's structured with a remote framework. But I took this class with Professor Pasinski. I think there is one other professor that teaches it. It is not offered in the spring, but I thought I'd share it anyway as something for people to look out for. I know there are a handful of econ majors in here. And so this is a philosophy class called Philosophy and Economics. And I signed up for it because I needed a TMB, quite honestly. And I thought the title sounded really interesting, and it was a cool approach to applying some basic economic framework and knowledge, like supply and demand, barriers to entry, costs, and like some really basic knowledge, anything you would learn in Econ 1 in a totally non-econ way, and learn about it from the perspective of philosophers and morality, and analyze, even though something's optimal, is this the way that we should structure society, and how do you start accounting for the costs to human life, for costs to well-being? So that was really interesting. Although I came from an econ background taking this, there's absolutely no need to. Most of the class did not. But I know that there are a lot of people interested in econ here, so I thought I'd put it out there. People interested in this, potentially someone that also needs a TMB, but also anyone that just wants to use some basic econ knowledge to approach philosophy or discuss current events. This was, again, at the onset of the COVID pandemic. So we talked a lot about that. We talked about how states were making decisions about the lives of their citizens, how, like, whose lives they were valuing more, and why, and how you make that calculation. And also just a plug for Professor Pasinski. It was incredibly organized, really well structured. It was the beginning of remote classes, but even so, like, I know a lot of classes, it can be very frustrating if you're not sure what work you have to do every day, and like you spend most of your time just wondering if you're getting the right things done. That was not the case for this, and I always knew what was coming up and what I had to do, so that was really helpful too. So those are my two recommendations.
Hello. So my recommendations, first of all, is in the Soci department. Thank you, Allie, also for wonderful recommendations. So my first recommendation is Soci 66, which is called Markets and Management. It's in the sociology department, taught by Brooke Harrington. I absolutely love this professor, Brooke Harrington. I took Soci 27 with her, which is called Organizations in Society, and loved her teaching style, loved everything about her. She's so cool. So decided to take Soci 66. And I also kind of, as an econ major, wanted more of like people perspective on how money works. So, both, I think psychology is really cool to understand the individual, but I think sociology, taking a class in sociology is cool to understand like group thinking and how does, how do groups and bigger or like combinations of people affect money and decisions. Um, it was such a cool class because it really just gave me a completely new perspective on how our society works and the things we take for granted today. And essentially that, obviously you have the econ model of supply and demand, but it's not just numbers. There are humans who have feelings and who are making the decisions. And so we discuss how, economics isn't really in a vacuum. It's embedded in our society, and just very, very, very cool course. It's also very usually small and discussion based. So students have a lot of power into like driving where discussion goes. And we discuss news and kind of analyze articles and current events in light of the theories that we read. And you'll also get to read some classical works like Weber and Marx, which I think is super cool because usually you won't pick up these books on your own, but in a classroom setting, you kind of are forced to, and they're actually really, really cool if you learn them like this. So no prereqs. Anybody could sign up for these courses. Highly, highly recommend. It is offered in the fall and not in spring, but thought I'd put it in there just in case people are looking ahead. And yeah, absolutely love Professor Harrington. Would really recommend SOCI 66 and also SOCI 27. My next recommendation is Econ 25. I know we've talked about this a little bit in WIN. This one's called Competition Strategy, taught by Professor Yule and also Mark Bernfeld. So originally I took this class because it was part of my, I guess, econ path and a requirement, but honestly, I was so surprised. And I think to this day, it's one of my favorite econ classes, and one that I thought like actually you get to apply econ knowledge to something outside of the classroom. This class is super cool because it has kind of like an entrepreneurship component where taught by Mark Bernfeld, and he brings in guest speakers, guest lecturers to teach kind of basics entrepreneurship 101, but also you get a chance to kind of come up with your own company. And Dorm to Dorm is the company that my group came up with. And essentially you and 3 others or 4 others get to create a company from scratch, create a pitch deck, and then pitch it to like investors, I suppose, which is Mark, and get also really great feedback. And I think what's awesome is that I thought this class like did a really great job of balancing kind of the lecture and econ component of it with also the entrepreneurship component, and actually learning some theories about entrepreneurship. And there were just like some really, really cool guest lectures, and then being able to actually put that into practice. Unfortunately, you need some econ background to take the class. I think you might need like Econ 1 and I think just Econ 1.
21. I think it has 21 as a prereq. Yeah.
Okay. So Econ 1, 21, and maybe like Math 3 or something. But if you are on the Econ major or Econ minor path and are looking for something not so lecture based and maybe a little bit not non-traditional, then this is definitely a course I highly recommend. And this was the course that really inspired me to enter the field of entrepreneurship and start, seeking people out who are interested in this. So yeah, could not recommend enough. Absolutely love this course.
All right, I'll be taking over now because these are Ariana's recommendations. She's the other programming chair, but unfortunately, she's currently taking a flight, so she couldn't join us. But she recorded a video talking about her classes, and we can watch it.
Hello, I'm Ariana. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about these classes. So my first recommendation is Engines 12. Design thinking. I had it with Roby my freshman fall, and honestly it changed my life. Strongly recommend it for anyone who's interested in like just finding a new way of like thinking about things, or if you want to work on hands-on projects. I've heard the Zoom version is actually like pretty good and had super good reviews, so sounds amazing. I think this was my favorite class I've ever taken, and it definitely set me off on the path for like getting really excited about projects and ideas and trying to like make my own ventures. Strongly recommend. Text me or email me if you have any questions about that one. And then Engines 21 is kind of along the same lines. It's basically like a startup class. You get in a group at the beginning and you think of an idea, and it's just like a lot of fun. You learn how to do a bunch of different things. You learn about like the economics behind it, and you learn how to do some like modeling, just a lot of useful skills, and learn how to really work well, or not well, just work in a group. And you can put in like as much work as you want and get as much out of this class as you want. And it's good, definitely a very good foundation if you take Engines 12 before, because then you have a leg up when you go for your pitch at the end. You know how to do a pitch, and like you know the design thinking behind finding a problem and working towards a solution. So those two classes are definitely some of my favorites. Strongly recommend.
Great. I can actually also talk about Engines 12. I took it and really, really liked it. I am not an Engines major, so I haven't taken Engines 21. But wait, I'm trying to get out of this. Okay, for my, sorry, I'm trying to, there you go, the slides, okay. For my recommendations, I'm only doing one, Econ 24. I took it last term with Professor Novosad. This is development economics. It's a really, really good class. It also has two prereqs. It's Econ 1 and Econ 10, or any other stats class. So Gov 10, Psych 10, Soci 10, doesn't matter which one. It was a really, really great like surprise of a class because it felt very different from other econ classes I've taken. The focus was mostly on like the readings and kind of like the literature behind development. We read two books, the ones I put here, How to Rig an Election and Poor Economics. And it really, I don't know, like kind of like opened my eyes to so many of like the big problems like we in the world. And it also is very focused on kind of different programs and initiatives that are ongoing to kind of solve these. So in a way, it teaches you a lot about like innovation and entrepreneurship in these poor communities in developing countries. So if you're interested in like social entrepreneurship, are interested in just like learning more about development in general, this is a great class. Also, Professor Novosad is incredible. He's really well known in his field. I feel like we can say that about like so many profs at Dartmouth, but he really is amazing. And he's going to be taught in the spring. So if you have taken Econ 1 and stats and you're looking for a class, this is a great one to take. There's a lot of group projects involved. You get to write a couple of policy memos. There's not like an innovation component on its own, like a startup or anything like specifically like that, but you do read a lot about ventures around the world and everything. So would highly recommend for anyone interested in the field. Then the following person is Ellie.
Hi guys, I'm Ellie. So my first recommendation is Engines 31. It does have one prerequisite, which is Engines 20, or if you took CS 1 and 10, that's the same thing. I would really highly recommend this class. I started taking it because I really wanted to understand like what a future engineering path might be before I took the Engines prereqs, because I'd started taking them and I like wasn't sure if it was a fit for me after taking them. And the reason I really loved this class is because it made me so aware of how like interdisciplinary, wide-ranging like engineering can be. And that like made me feel like included in engineering. And I really love that. So would highly recommend that for this reason. And then also because of the design techniques I learned in the class. Basically, this is focused on VHDL and designing, but we also learn a lot of like concepts around design that seems super applicable to me like, in other circumstances. So for example, we learned about like state diagrams, which basically are circumstances where there's multiple events occurring within them, and like one action leads to a different circumstance. And to me, like that is something which I've kind of applied in other aspects of my life. Kind of starting to understand like where, like how something works. And something which surprised me about the class was just again like how integral design was to the course. So we would like start our labs by like talking through what steps we needed to take to get it done. And it didn't feel technical. It felt very much like a brainstorming session around like logic and ideas. So I really liked that. I think you should definitely take this class if you're interested in how electronic products work. That to me was mind blowing. I had no idea how anything around me in that realm worked, and that was pretty cool to find out. But also, if you want to practice troubleshooting, the techniques I learned in this class, like I've used to like fix our sink. And if you want to design something from initial concept to final product. So I created a Morse code translator, which basically you type words you want in and a light flashes with the Morse code version of those words. So I never really built something like from the very beginning before. And that was really cool. And my second recommendation is Econ 39. Again, I think this class was really compelling initially to me because I had only taken a few econ classes and I wanted an understanding of like what econ might look like a little bit more down the road. But actually the only prerequisite for this class was Econ 1. So I was able to take it pretty early on while exploring economics. I also took this class because I didn't understand at all how trade policy worked, even like what trade entailed, what the impact of it was, and I wanted to understand that through economics. So this course ended up being super exciting because I understood more how economic models fit in to policy decisions. At the end, we had this final paper where we had to propose I chose to propose a carbon policy to reduce carbon in the world. And I kind of came in being like, I'm going to choose these policies based on this idea, and then I'll find graphs to support my idea. But what ended up happening is that I used the models we learned in class, and this is what we were encouraged to do, to actually develop the policy idea. And that kind of switch in thinking had never occurred to me and was so compelling. So I think I'd really recommend taking this class because it kind of changes your approach to problem solving, kind of like Engines 31 as well. So if you want to gain a deeper understanding of like how economics informs policy and how that process happens, or just like explore the impact of economic modeling, I would highly recommend this class.
So this next class is CS 25.01, Intro to UI UX Design by Professor Laurie Loeb. And it's normally offered in the spring, but I think it was also offered this winter because there was a really high demand for it. It's a really hands-on project-based course that introduces you to various stages of the design cycle. You learn all sorts of things like how to conduct user interviews with people, to find problems that need to be solved, how to brainstorm solutions, how to design interfaces like apps or websites, and how to test them and make them better. And there's absolutely no coding experience or any prerequisites required. And I took this class because I saw a friend doing their final project on it, and I thought it was really cool. And I wanted also to explore digital design. And what I really loved about this class was just how like relevant everything I was learning was to my everyday life. Like I started to notice good and bad design in the things I was using in my everyday life. And it was really interesting to see how much more there was to design, like other than the visuals. There's so much more involved that we often overlook, like being able to really understand our users, being able to like brainstorm effectively. And I also really like the cool design concepts that we learned, like how different layouts, different fonts and colors really affects like the way you use and like experience all the platforms we use every day. And I thought the skills we learned were really applicable to like anything design related in life and really transferable. And it was overall like a really eye-opening course that got me really interested in the design and tech world. And I took this course last spring when it was taught online for the first time. And I thought it was really amazingly adapted. Like Professor Laurie Loeb had really great energy and I felt really engaged throughout. It was actually like the only class that I think I ended up going to throughout the term, perfect attendance. I thought there was a lot of good fun activities in breakout rooms that were taught. It was taught really well. I really liked how well it was structured. There were lots of weekly assignments and activities that help you really learn the concepts really well. And what I really liked was that you got to learn, you got to work with different people each time in each of like the weekly projects. So you get to know your classmates really well, even via Zoom. And you get to learn from like other people's works and see how like other people design, which is really cool. And it's a really like interdisciplinary course with like lots of different skills. So if you like working in a team, if you like being creative as well as problem solving, and if you like understanding people in general in everyday life, I think you'll really enjoy this course. Yeah, this is my favorite course at Dartmouth so far.
That is way too many words on the slide. Pam, maybe you can help me to design my next one. But I am here to recommend Creative Writing 20, which I recognize is not as similar to the other ones that have been recommended. I've taken some of those classes and they are incredible. And I think this one actually sometimes works as a very good complement to those. So like, don't rule it out just because it's writing. But I took it with Professor Thomas O'Malley, who's absolutely incredible. And this spring, it's being taught by Alexander Chi. I don't know if you've heard of him, but if you go to Still North Books, you'll see his books are there. They're New York Times bestsellers. I'm all the way in Seattle. If you come to Seattle, his books are on our shelves. And let me tell you, when he shows up in Still North, like everyone goes quiet because everyone wants to talk to him. And when if he showed up in Seattle, like they would close down the city. Like that's how cool the professors are that teach creative writing. And to me, I'm so lucky because I'm always like, oh, those are just like our professors. So it's just a really cool way to learn writing from writers. Creative Writing 20 is the second sort of in this creative writing fiction workshop sequence. So it starts off with Creative Writing 10. That's a very highly recommended prerequisite. I didn't have time to take it, but I think it sounds incredible. So this is intermediate fiction. Even if you are a beginning writer, as long as you show demonstrated interest in writing and you've given the application, like you're good to go. It's a small class. It's 10 people throughout the term. You read about 90 pages from every single one of your peers, and they read about that much from you. People were writing like so many novels in this class. And it was just incredible. And I would say it offered years worth of writing development just in the space of 10 weeks. And like speaking as a writer, that is like a unicorn. That was like one of the best gifts I've ever been given. And I never thought I would get that at Dartmouth. My writing is so much better. You cannot tell from this slide, but I swear it is. And so I just learned so much. And whether or not you're looking into a career in creative writing, like the effect that this has, I think, on writing in general, no matter what field you're looking into, is just absolutely incredible. And you get to really be creative and have fun with it. So yeah, I would say it's like a heavy workload, but it all feels very joyful. And I think it would pair well with any of these amazing classes that the other Win execs have recommended. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome, guys. I wish I had more time to take all these classes. But yeah, thank you to everyone who came. We can happy to answer any questions. All of us are. If you guys want to talk about any of the classes, or if you have Zoom fatigue and want to get out of here, that's also totally fine. So totally up to you guys. Does anyone have any questions or comments or classes they want to recommend? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I know that for econ majors, I'm a 24 by the way. I know for econ majors you need to like choose 2 tracks. So I'm curious how you chose the tracks if you are an econ major.
Hi, I can take on that. So, Ning, actually, the requirements changed this year. And I know that for 24s now you have to take like one track that has 3 classes. One in like the 20 level 1 in the 30 level, or actually no, like it depends. Like the form shows it. It's usually like, say like if you're doing the sixes, like finance, like 26, 36, and now it's 66. And then the other ones that you take are like random, like they don't have to follow a track. But in terms of going for the track, I think it's important to find something that you're really, really passionate about, because the culminating experience, it's like a super heavy like research, I guess, I don't know, like seminar. So it's always better if you're like really, really into the topic and like invested and willing to put the time and effort into it. For instance, for me, I'm doing development, and I think it's honestly like 24 that I took, and like the fact that I was doing the readings and like doing the assignments, and it just didn't feel like homework. Like it felt like I was just like doing something that I could also do in my free time. So that's my take on it. I don't know if other fellow econ majors can add.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I loved Francesca's points. I definitely agree. And I'm actually doing the 25, so industrial organization. And I guess my thought process with that, because I also like really didn't know what track to go into. I kind of came into the perspective of like one day I kind of want to know how to like build a business, and industrial organization does that. Essentially, it scales down, like it looks at businesses on an individual level and how they work, rather than maybe like say like international economics, which is very macro level. This was like a very micro level path. And I also wanted to take game theory. I can't say it's easy. Can't say it's one of those classes that you look forward to, but I did want to take it for the sake of taking it and learning about it. And so it was on that path. And that's kind of why I decided the fives. I don't know if anybody else has another track that they're doing in econ.
Thank you. Thanks so much. This is really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Comments? I'm a QSS major. I'm happy to provide any insights there. But I know it's not as popular as econ. But if there are no more questions, we can sort of start wrapping up. Thank you guys again for coming. We'll be sending out a feedback form whether you guys liked this style. I'm just gonna stop recording.